Jay, welcome to the program. I actually tuned into your radio program today, and I was listening to your take, and I thought it was a good idea. You went line by line through the entire conversation, and I don't see anything that's problematic in any way, shape, matter, or form. How do you interpret this?
No, I think you're 100% correct. I literally went on our broadcast. I went line by line through this with a team of lawyers that include former U.S. attorneys that are experts in international law as well. And we went line by line. And by the way, the whole reference to Joe Biden that's in this 30-minute conversation, let's say assume about half of that was with translators, so 15, 20 minutes, whatever it might have been. The entire reference to Joe Biden as Joe Biden and his son, I read it. It takes about 14 seconds. If you doubled it to say the other references, it would have been 30 seconds. There's a lot of conversations about energy independence. There's a lot of congratulations about him winning the election. There's a lot about the EU not doing enough to help the Ukraine. There is a couple of references. The president of Ukraine brings up the issue of Mayor Giuliani, my colleague, Rudy Giuliani, saying he's talked to us about or talked to some of my assistants about corruption. The president says that we're concerned about corruption, those kind of statements. And if you look at it in both individually line by line and then in context, this is rather unremarkable. And the Democrats launched this impeachment inquiry. By the way, it's been the same inquiry for, 4 months. It's just now it's formal inquiry, whatever that means, nothing. You look at it and you say, what? They did this before they got the transcript. Now we've released to at least the classified version has gone over to the Senate of the whistleblower complaint. We hope to have out the rest of that. I know they hope to have out either later today or tomorrow morning. And then you take a look at the fact that Senators Menendez, Durbin, and Patrick Leahy wrote a letter to Ukraine's prosecutor general expressing concern at 4 investigations being closed by the prosecutor involving the presidents or associates of the president or how it would impact the Mueller investigation. And they said this could affect our bilateral support, our bipartisan support for Ukraine. Then take it a step further, and this is another aspect of it. You have Joe Biden bragging about the fact that he had the ability to get a prosecutor fired who was investigating his son's business and this company he was on. And he's bragging about it. So let's cut the double standard nonsense. They got nothing out of Mueller because there was nothing there. They got nothing out of their obstruction hearing or whatever that was last week with Corey Lewandowski. Nothing there. Oh, now we've got Ukraine. Except when you get the transcript, there's nothing there. Why is there nothing there? Because this is a perfectly normal conversation that a president would have with another president. It's that straightforward. But again, Sean, what I did was I went line, because I know you told me you were tuning in, went line by line through it so there would be no misunderstandings.
It is just a continuation. I would argue it's more than 4 months. I mean, this has now been going on a long time, and the Mueller report didn't come out the way they wanted. Just like the FBI investigation found nothing, the House Intel investigation found nothing about Russian interference, and the Senate Bipartisan Committee similarly found nothing on any of the issues that we're talking about here. So what we have is a political witch hunt. Now it went from Russia, and now it's this. I actually thought the New York Post, this is like a cheap version of what was the Russia witch hunt. But there's something greater here. John Solomon had broken the story that, in fact, Ukraine has been trying to give the United States information about how they tried to interfere in the 2016 elections on behalf of Hillary Clinton's campaign. I understand from my sources that, in fact, they're investigating specific requests from top Democrats, DNC people, others, that, in fact, they were looking for the dirt on Paul Manafort, anybody related to Trump. Isn't that what the investigation John Durham is looking into? Isn't that what it's partly about?
Yeah, we're trying to figure out how it all started. What was the basis upon which this entire nightmare, which is what it's been for the country, started? Although it ended up it ended up fine, but it put the president through 2.5 years of unnecessary burden, in my view. And now you got this thing. And when's the last time you heard about Russia or Russian investigations? So now it's the mirror opposite of Russia. It's Ukraine. I mean, think about this for a moment. First it was Russia. Now it's Ukraine. So it's the complete opposite of Russia as far as geopolitical situations go. And this is the irony of all this. And, people go, isn't it unseemly that the president mentioned Joe Biden by name? Is it unseemly that 4 members of the United States Senate sent a letter to the prosecutor in Ukraine urging him to continue investigations of the president and his associates and to not close it down, and it could affect their aid? Blocking cooperation cuts off a significant opportunity for Ukraine law enforcement. Then it goes, this refusal would also impact our government's commitment more broadly to support justice and the rule of law. I mean, on and on it goes. I don't know if there's a specific reference in that one to anything other than trying to get this shut down, and talks about potentially jeopardizing U.S. financial and military aid. Oh, you mean a quid pro quo. You do this, we will do that. You don't do this, we may not do that. None of that exists in this. And I am going to be addressing this on multimedia channels tonight, yours most importantly, and this is absurd that this has gotten to this level. And when it first came out, everybody's looking at it, and when I went through it this morning, line by line, with an analysis with a lot of people sitting in the room, people Sean, very good lawyers, we all realized there is nothing there. This is another Peter Strzok line. There is no there. And now we're finding out that the, quote, whistleblower, by the way, you can't be a whistleblower on the president. I mean, think about that for a moment. I mean, these members of Congress think that's okay? Have a whistleblower on the president? But besides that, it doesn't even meet the standards of whistleblower.
Jay, why is nobody asking whether we have another deep state operative leaking secret information on a president? Now, you've got to be concerned over the long-term ramifications all of this. Number one, what foreign leader? We already had it with the Australian prime minister early on in the career, and there was some president somewhere, I forget who, that also we had the transcripts of the president's conversation with world leaders leaked. How does a president conduct his constitutional duty, his enumerated power as commander-in-chief, and in fact he's being undermined by members in the government that don't like him, that are leaking these private conversations with the commander-in-chief and world leaders of other countries? There's no world leader that will be willing to have an honest conversation on the phone with Donald Trump or any other president.
Well, Sean, do you remember early on in the administration the leaks of the president's conversations with foreign leaders coming right out of either the NSC or somebody that was in the situation room? I mean, who would put up with this? Why would you tolerate this? And why are we tolerating this right now? And I think the answer is Nancy Pelosi announced a impeachment inquiry, which means nothing, no different than it was 2 days before or 2 hours before. She announces this impeachment inquiry before the transcript is released. So cut the baloney here, because that's what this is. It's total baloney. It's nonsense. We know what this is. It's all politics all the time. And they want political theater. Great. We'll engage in. We'll defend again against another complete really witch hunt.
This is a Ukrainian witch hunt.
I don't know if that's fair to witches.
Yeah, I mean, I
get flagged for that one.
No, I caught it. You don't go this far on your own show. I'm just saying. A lot of it always is, all right, we have polls. Biden is in trouble now. It seems like they want to throw Biden over. It's got impeachment mania. How do you analyze it? Because I don't see any change like you do. I think all we did was have we had word games being played by Nancy Pelosi, because we've had an impeachment inquiry. Now it's the official impeachment inquiry. So she's got this needle she has to thread, because she's really being pressured by the squad and the real radical left in her party, and she's not apparently liberal enough for them. And then she's got all these more moderate Democrats, if you will, and I don't think there's any, but Democrats that are in Trump-won districts. None of them want any part of this. So now she comes out with a statement. But if she really wanted to begin an impeachment inquiry, she would call a roll of the House, wouldn't she? Roll call.
Except no way she was going to do that. Okay, so she didn't do that. It was yesterday when all this broke, and I appreciate you had Jordan on, my son, who's got that new book out.
His book is great.
Wave. Yeah, he's got a chapter. It's interesting. It's called, and it's important. Winds are forming. That's the first chapter. Winds are forming. Next red wave. Winds are forming, but they form both ways, Sean. And part of what's happening right now is it is forming both ways. There is this current and then a countercurrent. And what we have to be prepared for, and I will tell you this as the president's counsel, that we are prepared. But this is, I am not building, and people saying, Sekulow's out there building a team of 50. Sekulow didn't have a team of 50 for the last go-round, and we did pretty well, I have to say. Came out pretty well. And we didn't have it. They had a team of 50. We had a team of about 6, and we got it done. We'll get it done this time, too.
No, I agree. What do you think the great vulnerability here is? And what do you think the political fallout of this is? Because at some point, Americans are going to see that if this is all that they care about, meanwhile, the president's out there fighting for jobs, the wall, originalist justices, deregulation, the largest tax cut in history, trade deals. I mean, all of this, of course, unfolding while he's at the UN with 1 million foreign leaders. Yeah, okay, great optics for the Democrats. Well, you know, what is the political fallout?
Well, I think the Democrats have got a heck of a risk here, right? I mean, they're trying to keep their majority in the House of Representatives, so they're trying to show some, muscular flexibility here, which doesn't really have any substance to it. I mean, this was cooked into the cake, so to speak, a week ago. So this was going to come. They're going to do this. I think for conservatives, Republicans, what you have to do is parry this back. You got to fight it back. How do you fight it back? Go to the document. Look at the words. Look at what was said. By the way, what legal violation have you heard? What statute, rule, or regulation has been violated here? None.
It's a good point.
High crime or misdemeanor. It's whatever Congress thinks it is. That's part of the difficulty, but it's also part of the challenge. I'm at the end of the day, Sean, we're going to win this. I'm not worried about it. I will prepare as I do, as you know full well. I leave nothing for granted. Our team will leave nothing for granted. We will carry the day.
What about the Democrats who wrote to Ukraine in May of 2018 pretty much?
I've got the letter.
And your reaction? This is Dick Durbin.
Quid pro quo. I mean, talk about an abuse of power. If you don't let these investigations continue, Mr. Prosecutor, you're jeopardizing financial assistance to the Ukraine, which has bipartisan support. I mean, that's exactly what they say. They talk about this could impact financial and military aid to Ukraine. That is their words. I'm not making it up. Let me read you the sentence.
Do you think what Joe Biden did was wrong after you read the sentence? Go ahead.
Yeah, well, let me read the sentence, and I'll say what Joe Biden did. The article notes that your office considered these cases as too politically sensitive, potentially jeopardizing U.S. financial and military aid to Ukraine. And then it goes on and on about what happens here. But they're saying, but if you block this, if you stop this, if you don't let these investigations go forward, you are putting everything else in jeopardy. Here's the thing. Is that wrong? Yeah. Is it illegal? It's stupid. It's ridiculous. Is it an abuse of power? I don't know what statute that actually means in this context, but I will tell you this. Joe Biden bragged about shutting down a prosecutor. He got his quid. He did the quid, and he got his quo. It's that straightforward.
Do you think that's illegal, and what would you look at in terms of the law? And do you think Joe Biden could be in any legal jeopardy when he is leveraging U.S. tax dollars? Last question.
I think, look, I mean, if there's such a thing as an abuse of power, I guess that would be it. Is it illegal? I'm not going to draw a legal conclusion on that. I'll tell you this, quid and quo. That's what it was. That's what he got.
All right, Jay Sekulow.